Perhaps we often pray that we won't end up sounding like our parents or our grandparents. For my own part, I have found myself increasingly noting ripped jeans, or the way in which young people mumble nowadays, and beginning to realize that I am indeed starting to sound like my own mother. Aware that I'm all too often thinking that the country's going to the dogs. There's no respect any longer. People don't stand up on buses to let older people sit down. And what a really grumpy old man I am becoming. If that is true of you, then join the club. And if it's not, pat yourself on the back. But I find myself at the age of approaching 55, with my inner arteries hardening and recognizing that where one day cataracts may develop in my eyes, there's a real risk that they may develop in my soul as well. There's good news this morning, though. Not so with Simeon and Anna, the aged couple who have served in the temple all their lives, have not hardened the arteries of their faith. They can see what others miss. How many young families would there have been coming to the temple at any one time, bringing the offerings of the poor, the turtle doves? What is it that prompts Simeon at that moment to recognize that something special has happened, has indeed arrived? What is it that summons Anna, the faithful prophetess and widow, to come at that moment to speak of what God is doing that's new? We have the chance, we have the opportunity, if we choose it, to ask the Holy Spirit to keep the arteries of our faith supple and alive, to keep our inward eyes open so that we are always expectant that God will do something beautiful and precious and new, even in our own day, even in the midst of our own ordinariness. Did you wonder, as the young family wandered around, whether they just arrived late? Honestly, can they never get to church on time? How ordinary they seem, this young family, members of our community. And yet today they represented Mary and Joseph and Jesus for us. So the simple symbol of Candlemas, the festival of light, is that even in a world that sometimes seems so darkened, we must keep the eyes of our faith and hope alight. Whether you rejoice at Brexit or you're grieving, whether you rejoice at the way that our country is or you don't, in a sense that doesn't matter for your daily life. What does matter is in what you do day by day that keeps the light of faith alive where you are. You may think that the activity of your life is so unimportant that you're too young or too old to make any kind of difference. Candlemas shows us an ordinary family coming to the temple and two old people who are still young enough in heart and faith to recognize that God is doing something remarkable in their day, that something new is beginning, a whole new relationship with God. Every time a child is born, every time you hold a baby, you are holding something new and precious and remarkable. For in every human life, God desires to act in such a way that something good will happen. Something of the kingdom will dawn in that child, in that young life. So Simeon and Anna recognize it. Do you? Do I? Can we? The child who Simeon holds in his hands will grow up to be a man who speaks about a God who is like the father of the son who runs away from home, who when he comes back throws a banquet for him, doesn't chastise him, who will talk about the kingdom as being a place that's like a woman losing a coin, then lighting a lamp and sweeping the house and throwing a party when she finds such an insignificant coin. That the kingdom and that God is like a king who throws a banquet for the poor and invites everyone in to eat the bounty and drink the wine. Simeon has an inkling of that, and so does Anna. So will you allow the eyes of your faith to remain open this week and throughout this year, to look for something good being done by God in your life, in your neighborhood, at your workplace, in your community, among your friends? Will you allow that to happen? Because if you do, then the kindling lights of Candlemas, which we extinguish now, will remain a light in your heart for the year to come. Amen.